One Sunday afternoon, Father's enlarged crayon portrait was smashed. The breakage is remembered vividly, as is the shock to my posterior from the spanking that followed. In those days, it was custom to have prominently displayed on a bamboo easel the picture of some member of the family, either Grandpa peering over his huge spread of bushy whiskers or Grandma atop her four-decker chin. But in this case, Mother's fondness and affection for her Francis caused his picture to be given the place of honor. Father was called Frank by his friends, but it was always Francis to Mother. The easel stood at least 5 feet tall with a third leg that stuck out in the back for support and was sure to be kicked any time a walker's path deviated from one door to another. The first time visitors glanced at Father's crayoned reproduction, they put on all brakes and stood stock still, for by some quirk of the artist, Father gave the impression he was overwhelmed by grief and just about to burst into agonized tears. But how did this early Americana work of art get broken? Well, it happened because I found a stout darning needle. While lying stomach down on the floor reading, my eye caught the glint of Mother's sharp-pointed sock-mending tool, evidently dropped from her sewing basket. This needle, plus the possible non-resistance of a carpet-seated chair which supported Father while he comfortably puffed on his pipe and perused a newspaper, created a temptation too much for one questing for knowledge concerning cause and effect. In other words, was the needle sharp enough to zip upwards through the carpet seat? Would it continue on through Father's pants? Would it also enter that sensitive part of his anatomy that made the downward bulge in the chair seat? If it did all these things, then what? I found out. The result was a terrific yell, followed by the newspaper going one way, the pipe another, and a convulsive stiffening of Father's legs straight out before him, accompanied by an upwards arching of the back to hurriedly get away from whatever it was that had so unexpectedly bitten him. His legs crashed the portrait, his arm knocked over the table, and the noise and commotion was truly beautiful. To me, that is, but not to Father. Far worse, however, than walloping me over his knees was Father's unusual punishment in his occasional edict that I was not to leave the inside of the house for 24 hours starting Saturday morning. Saturday, of course, was the day following a week of school, the day of play. That ruling was therefore worse than a whipping, for thrashing liquidated all debts for misdeeds and was over quickly. Where the effectiveness came in was that the order might be, and unusually was, issued early in the week, thereby giving me several days of sad anticipation and remorseful thinking. The jail to which I was sentenced was at 445 North Street. It stood midway in the block on the south side of the street, surrounded almost entirely by Irish families. The Fitzgeralds, Mulranans, Releases, Dixons, Higgins, Allens, Burkes, Crowleys, Lonergans, O'Tooles, Timmons, Burns, and McNierneys were all neighbors. The male members of the Rellis clan smoked short-stemmed white clay pipes they called dudines, but theirs were coal black from incessant use. There were 3 boys in the Allen family: Charles, who worked at the post office, Willie, who parted his hair in the middle, accentuating his thin face, and George, who was a tall, lean, loose-jointed fellow with long feet. Willie was never called William or Bill, always Willie, and George was a sight, placing his feet one in front of the other while walking, which was a fairly slow process. He required several minutes to pass any given point. I detested Nellie O'Toole with a wholeheartedness that comes only to one grievously wronged. For Nellie O'Toole ruined my snare drum, a Christmas present, in a deliberately conceived diabolical feminine plot. This drum was my pride and joy, for not only could I wear it, thump noises, and parade with it, but no other boy on the street owned one. One day, Nellie attempted to transfer to me some errands she had been ordered to perform, an honor which I refused, thereby causing a postponement of her, then interesting, mud pie endeavors and a desire for revenge that found an outlet the next day when I walked into play, carrying my drum. By some method known only to that species, she got that prized drum away from me, sent me on a fake errand down a lane of sheets her mother was hanging, and while thus concealed from her actions, she pumped water on both sides of the drum from the garden pump. Equipped with the most inexpensive sheepskin heads, the wedding removed forever the noise-making purpose for which this drum had been primarily constructed.